be moving forward to our next speaker of the night, and a speaker with a very, I would say, related topic, because our next speaker is Susan Lindner, CEO and founder of Innovation Storytellers, and she'll be taking us through innovation storytelling and explaining how to bridge divides and win support for your breakthrough ideas. I believe that's a great continuation from what Terence just shared with us, given the Accenture's innovative nature. So, Susan, I'm waiting for you live. I just gave you hosting rights, and the button to go on air should be in the upper right corner. Let's have our fires burning for Susan while she's connecting to the conference.
Can you hear me okay, Artem?
Yes, and I can see you too. Thank you so much for joining us.
Greetings from New York.
Welcome. We have our fires burning. Where I have the slides ready. Let me know when you need me to launch them. I'm off the air, and the floor is all yours. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so grateful to be with all of you today. It's always a good day for storytelling. So let's dive in. Artem, if you wouldn't mind starting the slides, I'd be grateful. Terrific. And Artem, I'm sorry, just remind me how I advance them. The arrow, I see it. Got it. So I want to take you to an experience I had of working at Corning Glass. Corning is the largest glass manufacturer in the United States. And I was working with a team of fractographers. Just put up your hand if you have ever worked with a fractographer before. A fractographer, if you don't know, like I didn't know, these are the people who are responsible for determining how glass breaks. It's a PhD field of study in physics. I wish I knew it existed when my 6- and 7-year-old were running around breaking everything in the house. But this example here is what I saw when the fractographers told me about a new automotive glass breakthrough that they wanted to pitch to the CEO. They had a 59-page slide deck, and there were 2 of these electron models as their opening slides. I don't know if there are any chemists out there, but this is an electron model of sand. And they were explaining in depth how this molecule was going to revolutionize the automotive glass industry. I personally could feel a yawn coming on just as I got started. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is never going to work. In the middle of this very complex, very scientific discussion, one of the fractographers had a baby. Well, I should say her sister, several states away, had a baby. And the fractographer, Amy, in the room became an aunt. Well, we were all very excited for her, and she was passing around her phone as we were looking at the little baby. And then sadly, we went back to the boring pictures of the sand molecule. And as we're looking at the molecule, I said to those guys, hey, Amy, can you show us the picture of that baby one more time? And so I said, Amy, can you imagine just how quickly those neurons are firing in this baby's brain? And can you think for a moment of just those capillaries inside of this baby's body, how quickly they're growing, and that tiny little pancreas, how hard it's working right now? And all of these fractographers, all of these amazing glass scientists were looking at me like I had 3 heads. And I said, they looked back at me and they said, we're getting too granular, right? We're getting too focused on the niche, right? And I said, yes, you are getting too granular. And that is the worst sand joke that I have ever heard. So as we moved on into this story, I said, there has to be a better way to tell the story about the work that you are doing. But typically, this is the problem for all of us. We get so focused on this thing that we have created, this big breakthrough, or we zoom out way too far and we talk about every shift and change, every breakthrough and innovation as something that's about to change the world. And as a result, we lose people in the process. So I want to talk to you a little bit about why innovation storytelling is so important, and frankly, why anyone can do it. My last job before getting into this line of work was as an epidemiologist at the Centers for Disease Control here in America. I was tracking all the different kinds of HIV and AIDS that were coming into the United States from different places. But prior to that, I was a bit of a revolutionary, and I was living in Central America, hitchhiked through 5 countries and 2 war zones to get to the front lines of the battles that were going on with the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. I figured out that fighting, at least with a gun, was not for me. And I decided to use my talents in another direction. Thankfully, I was able to leave that war zone, and I went to Thailand instead, where I decided to get onto the front lines of a different battle against HIV and AIDS. And I worked with Thai and Hill tribe populations there. Now, when I first got to Thailand, as you would drive along the highway, you would see these terrifying signs. It was 1995, and I was assigned to work in brothels with sex workers and their customers. By the time I got to my tiny town in rural rice paddy, northern Thailand, these were the billboards that you would see on the side of the road. 1 in 6 sexually active people were HIV positive. And it was a pretty terrifying time. There were probably 3 AIDS funerals a day where I lived. I'm not sure if there are any Thai speakers in the house, but I'll let you know that this billboard says, "Get AIDS and die." And this scary little guy is a hungry ghost who will terrorize your family if you should get HIV. So just a show of hands, I'm curious, or you can light your fire. Tell me if you think this billboard was effective as a public health campaign to fight the spread of HIV in Thailand. Just raise your hand if you think this was a highly effective campaign. Well, I have to let you know that it was. This was a shock and awe campaign, right? The desire to scare people into changing their behavior. And surprisingly, it worked. For about 6 months, we saw a decrease in new HIV infection with this story. But about 6 months later, people started going back to their old ways, and we saw new HIV infection rates climb again. So as marketers, what do we do when we find something that works? We double down. We go twice as hard. And I can tell you the next set of...
Susan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've lost the sound. Maybe you can refresh the page. So maybe the connection has lost.
Oh, okay.
We can hear you now. Yep. Just a second, guys. Thank you so much for being mindful and messaging right to the chat. Arman, Ekaterina, Michelle, thank you so much. Appreciate this. What a lovely place to be with this slide and myself out of context of the talk. We'll be continuing in just a second.
Is now okay?
All right. Yes. Perfect.
Yes. Great.
That's all yours.
People. Yes. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. So I had 3 target audiences for my story. The new one I had to create that was going to replace our fear-based storytelling. So the Mama-sans, as you can guess, when asked what was their motivation, why would they want to stop the spread of HIV? Clearly, they wanted to make more money. For the customers, they were looking to have a great night out, right, without the risk. And for the sex workers, when we asked them what motivated them, they surprisingly didn't say money. They said survival. Most sex workers at the time stayed in the industry for about 2 years, typically to pay off their parents' agricultural debt. But I had to find a way to change the story from get AIDS and die to something new. Because we know that human behavior is motivated by story, not by data and facts alone. So we decided to pose a different question. And that question was, what if you were the hero of your own story? How would you answer this question? How do we stop the spread of HIV? We asked if you were the center of the story rather than HIV being the center of the story. And the mama-san who owned the brothel told us that she wanted to have the reputation of the cleanest brothel in town. The customer told us that he wanted to be a protector to his family so that his wife and future children wouldn't get HIV. And finally, the sex workers themselves told us they wanted to be in charge of their own destiny. They wanted to be in charge of their own destiny. Well, I'm a public health worker, an aid worker in the middle of rural Thailand. How do I help a sex worker take control of her own destiny? And surprisingly, the answer was entrepreneurship. So this girl from New York City was teaching rural sex workers chicken raising, pig raising, and duck raising, not to mention a host of secretarial skills, computer skills, and also how to run a business, entrepreneurial skills. So that shift of helping these sex workers find a way out of sex work actually worked. And in fact, we wound up dropping the rate of HIV infection by 26%. So this program became so popular, it spread through many provinces in Thailand at the height of the AIDS epidemic and was truly effective. So I share this with you because we think sometimes when we're talking about storytelling as chief story officers, that our story is maybe just a marketing claim, or it's maybe presenting a new initiative inside of a company. But in truth, great stories change minds and save lives. And that's what they're intended to do. So you already know why stories are so popular. It's because the human operating system, the OS of the human being, is the story. And we are wired that way. We are not wired for Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints. And I always think of story as the most effective productivity tool. It is that thing that generates momentum inside of an organization because it is a memory-making device. If you just give people the facts alone, studies show they will forget it within 6 minutes of leaving a meeting. 6 minutes. But when those same facts are wrapped in story, they are 22 times more memorable. So Stanford has done the research for us, and that's really helpful for executives to understand why you need story. It's because who wants to go to a meeting 6 times on the same topic with no progress being made? Half of it is memory that converts into action. So just a show of hands, how many of you have seen this fantastic movie, Inside Out? I'm curious if it's just as popular in Russia as it is here in the United States. Inside Out is a movie that takes kids through all of their emotions and how to feel about their emotions. And it's really important to understand the reason why stories are so sticky. It's because of the emotion that we assign to them. How many of us have been to a horror movie and we feel our palms sweating and we feel our heart racing? That's because our body is having a physiological response to a fiction, images on a page. We are having a bodily response, and it's actually our bodies that hold on to the story. So we have to make sure that when we are telling a story, especially at work, that we don't leave the emotion at the door. I don't know how professional got mixed up with the idea of being emotionless, but it's rubbish. Emotion is what makes the story stick to our bodies and stick in our minds as memory that we can convert into action. And so I think of each of you as storytellers, as great neuroscientists. The neurotransmitters that you release in the body when you decide to make someone feel happy, sad, empowered, scared, joyful, terrified, you decide. Or maybe you're just trying to give them peace of mind. But every time you're telling a story, you get to decide which one of these brain chemicals you will release into the room. And I'd go one step further to say you are responsible for the neurochemistry that you set off with each presentation, each meeting agenda, You get to decide how you want the people in the room to feel based on your story and the neurotransmitters that you set off. So, why is it that at the beginning of every James Bond film, he is running across the screen being chased by someone? We don't even know who, but our adrenaline is lifted from the moment we step into the movie theater. We know that if we're trying to tell a story about AI, let's say, we know already there's a lot of fear in the room. There's already the fight or flight response in the room. Your job as the storyteller, if you're rolling out an AI program, is to figure out how to bring a little dopamine, a little pleasure into the room, and also some GABA, the calming effect, into the room. Maybe you know that your audience is filled with listeners who want to learn, who want to take on AI, who want to use it as part of their own work and initiatives. Well, you can entice them by releasing a little acetylcholine, by teaching them something they didn't know before they sat down. So all of these are at your disposal. And for me, I never put together a PowerPoint presentation without asking myself, what is the emotion that I want my listeners to feel from this slide? How do I want them to feel? So ask yourself that as you're creating your next story. What is the emotion you're guiding them through? Now, I can tell you for certain that the most important story, the best story to tell, is a goodwill story. What is goodwill? Goodwill is the act of making someone else's life better. When you think about the initiatives that you have going on, when you think about the way you want your listener to tune in and to change, how can you frame the story so that it's about making their life better? A goodwill story works because it allows the listener to see that there's something in it for them, and it automatically induces these three responses. Number one, it lowers stress. When you say, I'm rolling out this new AI tool, I'm rolling out this new tech tool, we're going to launch this cool new product, and it's in service of you. It's an amazing opportunity to bring down the stress level in the room, to offer greater reward, meaning I'm going to do this for you. This new project we're rolling out is going to make your life better. And then finally, greater caregiving. So caregiving is about making somebody else in our tribe, making their life better. So I'm an anthropologist by training. Caregiving in ancient times might be the ability to make all of us survive together. So I might say, eat this mushroom, it's fantastic. Don't eat this mushroom, it'll kill you. And this other mushroom may be saved for Saturday night. Today, in the modern world, a goodwill story sounds like an Amazon review or a Yelp review, right? Or a local restaurant review. Eat at this restaurant, the food is great. Don't eat at this restaurant, the service sucks. Or definitely try this restaurant for a special occasion, right? That is the same kind of community that we are creating when we tell a goodwill story. So think about how you can reframe the stories you're telling with goodwill, because it has a different impact on the human brain. And we know it's not just important that we tell a story from our perspective, but rather that other people keep telling the story. And a goodwill story, when it's for the good of the whole, spreads very quickly through a community. So when other people tell your story, we know that it's more influential on purchases, it's more memorable, and it's more trusted by the people listening. And that means the story will continue to spread, which frankly in innovation is the most important part of the story. So I want you to think about how you're going to make your listener the hero. And it starts off with always considering context before content. So have you stopped and asked yourself, what's actually going on for my listener right now? What's happening in their lives? Were there layoffs recently? Is there a new boss? Is there a new strategy, new technology that's getting rolled out? Are you opening new markets? What is the context that your listener is living in before you ever start working on the story? And one great way to do that is by creating an empathy map. So before I start off to write any story ever, I use this tool, the empathy map. And it asks these very important questions. We center the listener. We don't center the teller. We don't center our boss. We don't center the technology. We center the listener, and we ask the questions, what is my listener thinking and feeling? What really matters to them and what's really scaring them? What are they hearing from friends and family around them? What are they seeing in the environment, even the competition? What are they saying and doing? How are they actually behaving regardless of what they're maybe saying to the press or maybe what's happening in a meeting? What are they actually doing? But for me, the two most important questions are the ones at the bottom. That's the pain and the gain. So what are the fears, frustrations, and obstacles that my listener is facing right now that hopefully my innovation will help solve for them? So maybe their agony is that they want to get a new technology installed because they are falling behind the competition. They are not meeting their quarterly numbers. Their team is not functioning correctly culturally, right? They're not gelling, they're not vibing. What is the frustration and the pain? Maybe there's pressure to hit revenue numbers this quarter. So ask yourself, or even better yet, ask them, what is the agony that they're confronting that your innovation will be able to help them with? And then also, what's the gain? So what do they hope to get out of the innovation? Not what you hope to get out of it. What do they hope? So I've heard the craziest answers from this gain. Sometimes it's, if I buy your technology, if I use your cool new thing, will I be able to get a raise or a promotion in the next 6 months? If I use this thing, will I be able to leave the office by 5:30 so I could see my kid's football game for the first time? I'd love to be able to leave the office or maybe take a vacation. Here in America, you're lucky if you can get 10 whole days of vacation in a year, and you certainly wouldn't even take them in a row. So think about that. What is the real gain that your listener is hoping to get from this? And then you begin to position your story around the listener, but this really helps center you. So what's the pain your audience is experiencing now? What gain will your audience get? And if you want a real bonus question, what agony will your listener experience if they actually say yes to your breakthrough idea? What kind of training do they need to get? How much longer will it take to do their work now that they have to use your cool new thing? So ask yourself that. Even if someone says yes to your innovation, to your breakthrough, what pain are they going to have to experience just to get it to work? So I want to take you now through what I call the Great 8. This is a framework of how to tell a story about a thing that you've never seen before. So how do you tell a story about an innovation? Maybe you're working on a breakthrough or a new strategy, a new product, or you're rolling out a new idea within the company. Or maybe you're selling a technology to other people outside of the company. This is a way to sell innovation through an 8-slide framework that I think is super helpful. So we'll start off with slide 1. What is the shared history? So when you're talking to your listener, you need to start off by creating trust. And that means finding things that you have in common with your listener. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. So maybe you're in the software industry and the shared history was, do you remember when we just used to sell stuff to our customers and we didn't have this SaaS-based software where everything we sell is on a monthly basis and we have to be nice to them all the time? We have to figure out how to hold on to them rather than getting churn. What is the shared history of, I don't know, Bill Gates' blue screen of death, right? Or remembering when Steve Jobs first launched the iPod. Like, think about how the shared history that you have with your listener so that they say, I like this person. I could definitely continue the conversation. I'm interested in what she has to say. Step 2 is probably the most important piece of this process, and that's called owning the shift. So the shift is all about the change that you're bringing into the world and that everyone else in the world can see is critical right now. So the shift asks the question, why is this innovation, why is this breakthrough that you're about to tell me a story about so important right now? Why this innovation? Why now? So because my audiences, the folks I talk to on a regular basis, are really big organizations who are constantly creating new innovations and new changes, or as an entrepreneur, you might think about it as a breakthrough new product that you're creating. You have to help the listener understand why they cannot turn away, why they absolutely positively must continue listening to you. And that requires you to say why this product is so critical right now. So you might present this as a macro shift, meaning there are things outside of our control that are creating a change in the world. So maybe it's new laws, maybe it's climate change, maybe it's return to the office. 5 years ago, it was COVID that was creating a shift in our workspace. It's things that are outside of us, like AI, that are impacting us, and we have no chance but to confront it. The other are micro shifts. These are things that are taking place inside of the office. New leadership, new strategies, new markets that are opening up, layoffs that are coming, or new hires. So this is really important for us to nail down the shift. And the second thing about this is on either side of the shift, there will be winners and there will be losers. For those of us who work in innovation and change, people who stand still and do nothing, who do things like we've always done it, are losers. And people who are embracing the change will win. So as part of this slide deck, right, this is really your first slide. There's a change happening in the world. It is X. We know that this is impacting us because headlines tell us that climate change is impacting our trade routes, that conflict going on in the Strait of Hormuz will ultimately change our shipping routes. Whatever it is that thing that's making the shift happen, we have to prove it. And then we can point to other people who are already embracing the shift and moving in the right direction. So think about who your audience loves and appreciates, name them by name, and say, we already know what Amazon's doing to compensate for getting through the Strait of Hormuz. They're using trade routes over Europe and China. I'm just making it up. But what's an example of a company that your listener would admire and say, wow, if they're doing it that way, we can do it too. So that's number one, own the shift. Number two is breadcrumbing. If you're having trouble telling a story that gets people to move from the status quo into the new thing, sometimes you need breadcrumbing. Like Hansel and Gretel, the old story of leaving breadcrumbs behind you, you want to show your listener just how innovative they are already by showing them how much transformation and change they've already been through. So if I was selling software in the 1970s, I would have sold you a product as an IT salesperson to an IT leader. You would never interact with the secretaries in the office, with the executives in the office. You would go directly to technical people to have a technical discussion. But by the 1990s, companies started buying software, right? And as a result, when we are doing that, that change that happens inside of an organization means now software is sold with a consultant because we're selling directly to a business unit. In the 2000s, with the DIY revolution, the customer-centric approach shifted. And if I was selling software, I would have to sell it to people in every business unit. And frankly, I would be responsible for downloading it myself, right, as a user. Today, we might say that we are living in a different era. Breadcrumbing allows you to look back and show people the resources that they've used, the changes that have been made to budgets, to people, to technologies, and that your listener has already overcome great obstacles to get there. Today, we're buying software on a monthly basis. Who would have thought we'd be buying diapers and dog food over the internet delivered to our homes once a month? But we are living in a relationship era now with our customers. And so this is a change we want to show people that they have made changes and they still can. Once you've shown them the past and just how far they've come, now it's time to show them what's coming in the future, which is what you really want to tell them. Showing them heaven means stopping for a minute in your presentation and asking the listener, what if? Imagine if we could solve all of your problems like this. Ask them, what would heaven look like to you if we could solve these problems? Now you'll notice I haven't mentioned my product or service yet. I haven't mentioned anything that I'm offering. I'm just trying to get feedback and buy-in from the listener as I'm telling this story. And I'm pausing here to ask them, what did they need? What did they want? What does heaven look like to them? So when we show them heaven, you might hear all different kinds of pie in the sky, really big ideas of what heaven would look like. Oh, I'd get 6 weeks vacation and my work would be done for me. And it wouldn't be great if AI could do all the analysis without me. That would be amazing. And maybe one day we can get there, but I think we all know it's not easy to get into heaven. So we ask the question next, what's the next right step that will get you one step closer to heaven? And inevitably, that is your big breakthrough, your idea. So this is when we offer the magic tools. This is when we tell entrepreneurs, product leaders, executives, this is when we introduce the product itself. When we say, here's all the features, here are the benefits of the product that I'm selling. This is how we sell an innovation product. Now, it's really important that people only offer the features and benefits that matter to this audience, because what matters to listeners in Shanghai is going to be very different from what listeners in San Francisco need, potentially. So it's important to make sure we get the features and benefits for this audience right. So bring out your demo, bring out examples, bring out the product itself. This is when you really shine, by showing them the tools. Now, one thing is true about selling an innovative idea is that you can never do it alone. Great new ideas need third-party validation. So this is the part of your presentation where you want to bring out the adopters and allies. So who is willing to say, I love this product. It's better than sliced bread. I don't know where I've been all this time. If someone wants to take this product from me, they'll have to do it over my dead body, right? I want to see a slide that has pictures of 3 faces, their titles, and then I want 1 sentence each from a customer, an adopter, an ally, a partner who's willing to say, this idea is masterful. Now, I've never been in an innovation presentation where someone is rolling out a new idea and everyone around the table goes, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't wait. This is incredible. Fantastic. It's your job as an innovation storyteller to find out where the no's are in the room, hopefully before you get into the room. But when you find them, it's really important to begin to point them out. Say, when someone says to you, this is never going to work, I can't get the budget for this, my team doesn't have the time, we're already way too overcommitted. When someone says no to you, they're actually showing you their vulnerability. They're showing you the lack of power they have to say yes to something that you know is brilliant. So it's your job to find the obstacles, if you can, through your empathy mapping before the presentation happens. And this is where you stop and say, I know you're probably thinking that you'll be way over budget if you invest in this product, or if you invest in this project with time and your team. But I have to tell you, from the adopters, early adopters we found so far, they've seen a return on their investment in 6 months. Their team has never been happier. They've been more productive, more insightful, and better positioned against the competition than ever before. What other challenges do you see? So the more you can raise those obstacles and own them rather than fear them, the better the story gets. And lastly, in a win-win situation, which is innovation storytelling, you have to point out how people will win over time if they say yes to your big idea. So what is the win that happens when you say to a customer, I know you're buying this product today, but I want to invite you to become part of our customer advisory board. And in doing so, you'll be able to give us feedback all the time to make the product better. We want to continue telling the story with you in it. In fact, we want you to help drive the next generation of this product or service. We want to be in this for the long term with you. This is how we both win over time. So I want you to think about this for yourselves. When you're writing your next story, the most important part of the story is to own the shift. So ask yourself when you're telling your next story and you're proposing something new, why this? Why now? And begin to think about how that really works. How will you be able to position this as a why this, why now, that no one can turn away from, that everyone has to say yes to the buy-in. I believe you. We have to start thinking about this. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with today as we're finishing up is, before you ever start to write your story, ask yourself this question: what do you want your listener to think, to feel, to do, and to say when you are done speaking? When you're done, how do you want them to feel is the thing that will drive what they do. So do you want them to feel empowered, terrified, excited? Do you want them to feel a sense of community together? Your job is to make sure you factor in all of these things. What do you want them to remember? How do you want them to feel? Get really clear about the call to action, what you need them to do. And the last one is making your idea go viral. What do you want them to say to the next person of consequence when you are done speaking? When someone leans over and says, hey, I saw you were just in that meeting. What's that all about? And they say exactly what you told them to. Pre-program your stories with what you want them to say to the next person of consequence. Artem, I think I'm going to hold up here in case there are questions. I know we're getting right to the end. And I can also leave you with this. I'm happy to give you my 5 steps to innovation storytelling. If you want to take this with you, there's just a little survey that I can give feedback back to Artem, and you can have this goodie to take home with you to write your next story.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Sorry, I just jumped off the air. So thank you so much. It was really a practical journey of how to present an innovative project and or an idea. And we have one question. Let me read it out loud. I've kept this question from the beginning of this conference, and I finally feel it's appropriate to ask it now. Intriguing. What do you think makes people believe that is the story being told? As a storyteller, is it worth it? Is it worth investigating? I believe.
So what makes them believe the story that's being told?
Yeah, I guess so.
So when you're presenting the shift, so I do innovation storytelling, always trying to get people on board with a new thing, right? So that requires proof. So where can I find evidence in the market with other companies, from experts, from professors, from researchers, third parties, that will validate that the shift is happening, right? That it's something that we can't turn away from, number one. Number two is my adopters and allies. I need that third party validation, someone else who will say, who has tried it, who says, this is amazing. That's the other piece of proof. And the other is, if you have market data, if you can say, the sales on this are going through the roof, right? Or we're already seeing this trend in other markets. It's functioning in Japan, it's working in China, it's working elsewhere. I can show proof from other places. So proof is my answer. And I, as the storyteller, am responsible for bringing the proof. And tying that to the emotion that I want people to feel, right? So getting really clear about what the emotion is. That's important.
Yeah, Michelle, thank you so much. Thanks to you for the answer. Great answer there. So quick question for me, and we'll be moving on. So what if a story could be used to solve only one task across an organization? What task would you choose to use it for? Or what area?
You know, I have been spending probably the last 6 to 8 months, all of my time is on AI storytelling, because we are seeing massive shifts here in the workforce in the United States. Oracle laid off 30,000 people through one email at 6 a.m. and shut down all of the computers on their employees. Jack Dorsey, who is the founder of Twitter, laid off 40% of his workforce in one day, 6,000 people. So the shifts that are happening in the workforce here, the story that needs to be told is how do we create compassionate leadership and real community inside of workplaces when it doesn't feel like there is loyalty from leadership. So I think the story that has to be told now is one that is focused on valuing the human in the AI story. And I am working with the Air Force and Bayer Pharmaceuticals and really big companies to help get that point across that humans still matter. And more than just having a human in the loop, we are the loop.
Wow. Thank you so much. I like that vision. And we can see the fire is already burning.
Well,
thank you so much for bringing it. Yes, it's lovely to hear something as humane as this from somebody who is presenting the innovation. It's just the right balance. So thank you so much. It was incredible. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you for creating this forum, Artem. We need you, and we need storytellers all over the world. So thank you.